Hello, welcome back to the Sunshine Archive. Today is a video we have all been waiting for. It's a Zettelkasten video. I'm sorry it has taken me this long, but it's literally taken me at least a full year to fully wrap my head around the concept of a Zettelkasten. No matter how many videos I watched, how many Reddit threads I looked at, it was like trying to understand algebra. I've never been able to understand math. I've always been bad at math, and I felt like I was never, ever going to have a Zettelkasten because it didn't make sense to me until I borrowed the book, How to Take Smart Notes, from my library, and I read the Intro to Zettelkasten post that's on the zettelkasten.de website, and then I took extensive notes. I took notes of my Lloyd's term, and then I completely forgot everything, and I went back and took notes in my weeks, like, here's how I'm gonna sort them. What else? I was like drawing what it's gonna look like, where are the links gonna go, writing down like if there's already a 22, then you know it's a 23. If 23 is already there, then it's gonna be 22A. Like, I was reading and taking notes and really trying to understand Zettelkasten in my brain. So I took what I could from the book and from the website. I wrote things down and I smushed them all together into a Sunshine Archive system. If you are looking for an authentic, 100% accurate Zettelkasten, this is not your video. This is just my version of a Zettelkasten. I'm obsessed with it. I'm so excited that I finally got something that makes sense to me and my brain, and I'm so excited to just keep growing it and having it morph with me in my life. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take everything out and then I'm going to explain it to you. So this is an A6 box. I titled it Book Notes. It has some Halloween stickers on it, and this is just the carrier, the contraption that holds my Zettelkasten. And I have A6 size dividers and index cards. These are from a brand called Comta. They are clear fontaine or like rhodia paper. It's fine. They're not my favorite because some inks still feather, and it's not my favorite paper. So I'm trying to use these up. And then I have some old ones here from Foglietto, the brand that folded over and no longer exists, but I have quite a few A6 cards to get through from them. They don't show properties of fountain pen inks that well at all, but it's still pretty solid, and I'm excited to get use out of these. Once I'm done with these and the Comta, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but we will cross that bridge when we get there. The index cards are from Amazon. The tabs are also from Amazon, and the tabs came with stickers. And then I also use these Post-it note tabs. These are plastic. I believe they're about an inch in width. So those are the materials: cards, dividers, tabs, and a box. Okay. The first index card, or the first divider, is titled Index. This is going to be an index for my Zettels. I currently do not have an index to show you, but what I assume it will end up being, it'll be something like the commonplace box, where I will have a card, alphabetical, so cards A through Z, and each card will contain topics that begin forming around my original thoughts. So a Zettel is an original thought. So let's say I have a bunch of original thoughts from my brain about pencils. So this is going to be the P card, and then I'm gonna have pencils on the left side, and then I say, well, cards 1, 10, and 100 are all about pencils. So if I have like 1,000 cards and I don't know, where's that thought I had about the pencil? I'm gonna go, okay, I'm gonna check my index. And I'm gonna go through P, and I'm gonna look, oh, these are all the cards that have an original thought about the topic of pencils. So that's what's going to go in the index. It's going to be an alphabetical system by topic where I can easily find my own Zettels. But right now, I do not have an index card because I don't have enough Zettels just yet. But that's the first one. So that's going to go in the box first. Behind the index tab, I have my Zettels. Now, in the original Zettelkasten, you are meant to have 2 boxes. you are meant to have a Zettelkasten box and a literature note box. I do plan on having 2 boxes, but I didn't want to spend the money right now because there's so much space left in this box. So once I fill this box up, I will separate my cards into 2. I will have a Zettelkasten and a literature note box. So in the book, it explains that, what was his name? I don't even remember this guy's name. Lumen. He had like a bibliographic information box. These are all the notes that he took while reading the book. This is the, created by Hermes 1950, found in the 3rd edition of the book. It's the bibliographic literature reading information. So you have book information in one box, and you have original thoughts and ideas that came from reading all of that in the other box. This came from this, but they are separate, okay? But for now, I'm keeping them all together because I have a big box. So after my index, I have my Zettels. A Zettel is a card with one original thought or idea. It is not a direct quote from anything. It is your own brain. So Zettels is going to go after the index. So these are all Zettels that came as a result of Agua Viva. These were fleeting notes that became original thoughts and ideas. Basically, marginalia that I took in the book. So for example, I'm gonna find the fleeting note because I kept my fleeting notes in here that then became this Zettel. So I wrote that it was on page 3. So while I was reading this book, on page 3, I had the idea that existing in the present is really hard because the present is difficult to get a hold of. So I had this original thought while reading this page of the book. And then I titled it List Zet 001. Your tagging or titling system can be literally whatever you want. It could be shapes, letters, numbers. The only thing that I've stuck to is that it goes chronological. So simply because this is the first card that I made, it's titled 1. I only titled it 001 because I thought that having 3 things in each was aesthetically pleasing to me. I named it Lis for Lie Spectre, Zet for Zettel, and 001 because it is the first original thought, the first original Zettel that I created from this Clarice Lie Spectre book. That is why I titled it this. You can just title this 1. You don't need anything else. It can just be card 1. I took the fleeting note that I made on a post-it note while reading this book, and I copied it down here. Sometimes I leave the note exactly as it was in the fleeting moment, and sometimes I alter it, add, or delete things to make it sound a little bit better. Because for me personally, the whole point of a Zettel is that I can just take a Zettel out, and this Zettel can become 100 more ideas. It can become a fleshed out essay or book. I should be able to take this as it is written and it be good enough to insert into a project, a work of literature, or a Substack post that I want to create. It's not a bullet point. It's not a fleeting idea. It's of a more solid, well-rounded, well-written thought. So I wrote how hard it actually is to exist in the present because it is so fleeting and impossible to get a hold of. And then I rewrote it so it's more elaborate and more beautiful, and I can just copy paste this into an essay I write about the present or time. It feels impossible to get to the marrow of life, to fully exist in the present because every second is so fleeting and impossible to get a hold of. Some things are just untouchable. But even though you can't grasp the present in your 2 bare hands, can't you still feel it? Do you feel it come and go? Do you feel it pushing and swaying? And then I tagged it as whatever I thought the original thought was about. I thought this thought was about things being fleeting, present, untouchable, and feeling. You can see I used a star and then I used hashtags. At the end, I just end up using stars. You don't have to tag things. You can use colors, as in like, let's take this example card. If you have a lot of cards about time, pink could just be your time color. So what you can do is just highlight the top right of your card. So if you're looking for things about time, the color stands out to you. I just went with words. You can do whatever it is that you want or skip tagging them altogether. The whole point is to go through all of these original ideas and keep making connections to it. So let me explain something else. 2 just means that it's a new original thought, has nothing to do with this one, and I got it from another page in the book. But let's say I want to sit here and write. I pull this card and I have a completely other thing that goes along with this card. Let's say I want to continue after swaying. So things are always in constant flow and movement, like our breath, like the sea. So because I read this and I got inspired by my own words and I wanted to add this to this, and card 2 already exists, you know, I can't add it right behind this card because I already have a number 2. I'm going to title this 001A because it goes right behind number 1 and it is an addition to number 1. So this goes behind 001 and it's titled 001A. And if I have a new thought about number 1, it's going to be 001B. But if I have an original thought based on this card, then the next card is going to turn into 001A1 because it's an addendum to this card. I know this process is what got me. This was the complicated bit. I hope I'm making sense. If I'm not, I promise that website is so good. It literally has like an infographic that I've drawn many times that explains it. But I hope that makes sense. So these are all the Zettels that came from reading that book. Page 7. Let's see page 7. So while I was reading this page, this fleeting note was written. I had 2 things I wanted to commonplace. No, a commonplace, a literature no, and a Zettel. And I had wrote, touching the surrounding energy, which was a direct quote from this page. So it wasn't that just reading the whole page made me think of something, but reading a very specific quote that Clarice wrote made me think of something. So I wrote the quote that made it so that I had an original thought, and then I wrote the original thought under it. So this is Life Spectre, Zettelkasten number 3, with the topic of ghosts, the past, and haunting, and it's from the book Agua Viva, page 7. The original quote being touching the surrounding energy, and my original thought, we are haunted by our pasts. We can and often are the very ghosts that frighten us. I didn't write these as I was reading the book. I wrote this 3 weeks after reading the book. I did not write them all in one day. I sat with them during my lunch break. I sat with the book in my chair at home. It was a little bit of me time, like 20 minutes out of the day that I can take to play with my stationery, to hang out with my book and my journals, but not have to put too much thought into something. I didn't have to sit and film the video. I didn't have to read another book. I could just spend time with a book that I already read. I didn't have to come up with a new essay or write a diary entry or create a drawing. I was just copying things down that I had already written. And I think this is just such a fun way to spend time with the things that you love, to still practice journaling and work with literature in like a more easygoing way. Just know that it does take a lot of time. Like creating this box, creating these notes, it takes a really long time. But to me, it is worth it. I do want to start a Substack. I want to start writing essays. I want to start publishing poetry again. And I think that this will be a great way to do it. I can flip through my Zettels. I can create content on here where I'm like, let's write something based off of our Zettels. And we don't have to start from scratch or a blank screen because I already have all of these beautifully written original ideas that in and of themselves can become anything, have the potential to be something. So those are my Zettels. Now behind the Zettels, I have the literature notes. What I have done is that I've basically created a reading journal system in the index card box. I have tried literally every single reading journal possible. I'm gonna go ahead and I'll link an old video from my old channel in the description about reading journals, or maybe not my reading journal. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna link my techo kaigi down below. I know some of you were curious about my old channel. I just feel wary about mentioning it because I really don't want the wrong people to find me. I'm like a little paranoid about that. But I'm gonna link my techo kaigi for this year because I go more into depth about like every reading journal system I have tried, and it doesn't work for me. And the reason why it doesn't work for me is because I am a rereader. I need to be able to add things to books 10 years into the future, and bound books make that really difficult. I have binders, I have ring systems, but the fuss of printing things, cutting things, hole punching things is too much to get the task done that I just don't do it. My ADHD kind of becomes paralyzed because there's too many steps, and so it just doesn't work. And I hope and cross my fingers that this is now my reading journal. So I have turned the lit/bibliography box from the Zettelkasten system, and I have created it, like made it into an analog journal. So I have a little tab that says read, because I want to keep track of all the books I read over my lifetime. So I tagged a little post-it note here that says 2025. So when I have my read book like this in my box, I can go by year, 2025, 2026, 2027, without having to create one like this for each year. So this is like the big tab, and this is like the sub tab. And because this is Clairefontaine paper, you can use paint on this. So I use Ecoline liquid watercolors to brighten this up. And these are the 5 books I have read this year. Devotion by Patti Smith, To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers, Grief Slut by Evelyn Berry, All Fours by Miranda July, and Agua Viva by Clarice Lispector. So behind my Zettels, I have my reading journal, which starts with all the books I have read so far in 2025. Let me put a little thing here to separate the blank cards. Then I have one titled Books Bought or Purchased. And then again, the main tab and the sub tab for 2025. And these are all the books I have purchased in 2025. The Letters of Sylvia Plath, Volume 1, The Diary of Anais Nin, Volume 1, The Collected Poems of Edna St. Vincent Millay, Diaries of a Young Poet by Rilke, Fernando Pessoa, Selected Poems, and The Collected Poems of Sylvia Plath. And now we have the lit notes. I'm going to be separating them by authors' last names. In the original Zettelkasten, it follows the same exact method that the Zettels do, where it's just numerical 001, 002, 003, and so on and so forth. I didn't want them to be like that because I wanted to collect all of the notes that I take on one specific book behind that specific book. My Zettels, it's important for my Zettels to connect with each other. It is not important for my literature notes to connect with each other. This is an archive. This is more of something I'm going to look back on or add to when I reread those books, but I'm not going to be adding original thoughts to my literature notes. Just like my commonplace notes, I can't keep these by author or by date because I really need them to be by topic, because that's how I'm going to be using it. I need to pull a quote about happiness for my essay. It's easier for me to look for happiness than it is to look at, quote 10,000, So they're all separated in a way that works for me. I went with alphabetical by last name. So if we go to L, we will find all of the literature notes that came to be from Agua Viva by Clarice Lispector. So what I've done is that behind the L tab, I'm sorry, there's a lot of noise in the home happening at the moment. I hope that is okay. I made an index card titled Lispector because I'll read other books by other authors who have L names, and I want to be able to find each book as easily as possible. So I created a little sub tab with my post-its titled Lispector. And then behind that is the book, Agua Viva. And then I created another little subtab titled Agua Viva so that it's easier for me to locate when I'm looking at the box. I'm like, okay, L, Life Spectre. Okay, this is the Life Spectre book I want to add to or read my notes about Agua Viva. So the first book under Life Spectre is Agua Viva. I have a picture of the book that I printed out on sticker paper, the star rating, 5 stars, my review of the book, and the dates in which I read each book. There's still some space here, so if I read it 3 or 4 more times, I can write those dates in, and I can always do a little arrow and then continue writing the dates that I read it and maybe even add another review. Or if I want to review the book again, I can just put it behind this one. You know, I can always add to this. It's an addable system. About the book, I wrote, this was my second time reading this book, and it was just as mind-boggling as the first time. I believe this is a book I will always come back to, and I will get something different from it every time. It's existential and uncomfy, and always inspires me to write. I know I'm reading a good book when it pushes me to create. And then behind the book review, so let's review it one more time. Letter for the last name Life Spectre, a card for Life Spectre, and a card for that specific book. Behind the specific book, I have every literature note that I created for that specific book. And the literature notes were originally, again, just fleeting notes in the book that I took on a post-it note. I had a commonplace, a fleeting note that didn't end up becoming anything, and a literature note inside the book. These will then be removed and thrown away. Sometimes I went through the literature note and I decided, actually, I don't like that literature note, or actually, that's not a Zettelkasten, that should be a literature note, or, you know, whatever. It's important to review your book and review your notes. Not every note that you make is going to end up in your box, and that's okay. So here's another example. This is a literature note. It is titled Lis Lit 001. That means that this is a literature note that I created from a Clarice Lispector book, and it just happens to be the first note that ended up in the box, which is why it's titled number 1. And the note that I made is about writing and specifically about the book. And so that is why I tagged it writing and about the book. And I created this note in the intro page, page 1X. So let's look at the original note in page 1X. Here it is. Here's my lit note. I learned that the Book of Pleasures came before this book and that she used her crónicas as inspo and kind of copy pasted. The light change is because I just lost a light bulb that needs to be charged. My apologies for the lighting change. So a literature note is a note on the text. It is a marginalia about the text, about your feelings towards the text. Oh my God, I loved this. Oh my God, I hated this. Oh, I didn't know this about the author, about the book. It is book-centric and specific. They are not original thoughts that turn into something else. Those are Zettels. They are book notes. They are not original quotes that you've transcribed. Those are commonplace quotes. It is just marginalia that you loved and you want to remember. It is book information that you want to remember, and so you write it down. So I wrote, I learned that The Apprenticeship or the Book of Pleasures was published before Agua Viva and that she used many unmodified chunks of her crónicas in this novel. So I kind of changed it so it was more of a full marginalia note instead of a bullet point. But that was it. So this was information about the book. This one, on the other hand, was me just really liking something and feeling like it was relatable. Lispector literature note number 2 from page XII of the introduction, tagged fleeting notes, the writing process or the editing process. And my marginalia on that page read, I love the description of editing Lispector's fleeting notes into this novel. Can you hear the birds? They're so loud. It reminded me of my own note cards and the obsessiveness or compulsiveness that often accompanies writing. And then I wrote the quote that specifically inspired this piece of marginalia. It was like a puzzle. I took all the fragments and collected them, kept them in an envelope. After collecting all those fragments, I started to number them. Now, it could be that a commonplace quote also inspires marginalia and also inspires a zettel. In that case, I would write the quote 3 different times. I would write it in a literature note and just write down the marginalia that went along with it. I would write it in a commonplace card and place it under the appropriate theme. And I would write it as a zettel and write down my own original thought and what page that thought was originated in. So those are all my literature notes. In total, this book created 9 literature notes. I'll read you the last one. Lyspector literature note number 9 about anxiety and panic, found on page 13. My marginalia read, "This entire paragraph exemplifies to me what it's like to have panic attacks." Then I wrote down what she said, and then I added another note to it, also the true self clamoring to be set free. Nothing as anxiety is inducing as authenticity. I can go back through my lit notes one day and decide that there's nothing as anxiety inducing as authenticity is actually a great line to put in an essay. And so I can copy this down into a zettel. And I can tag in the zettel on the bottom that it was inspired by literature note number 9. And so in that way, my zettels can connect and communicate with my literature notes. So that is the intro to my Zettelkasten. I have finally created and begun using my Zettelkasten. I hope it made sense. I know Zettelkasten videos, at least for me, are just so nebulous and difficult to understand. So if you just understood one thing about Zettelkasten from this video, God bless. I'm so grateful for that. Check out the zettelkasten.de website. Check out the How to Take Smart Notes book. I promise that I hope that those 2 things plus this video just simplify it for you and that you are able to create your own beautiful analog system from it. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.